Alright, testing. Alright, Chapter 9, Acceptance Standards Non-Destructive Testing. Welding Pipelines and Related Facility, American Petroleum Institute Standard 1104. Chapter 9, Acceptance Standards for Non-Destructive Testing. Alright, the acceptance standards representative of the section apply with the imperfection located radiographic magnetic particle liquid penetration ultrasonic testing methods is also be applied with a visual inspection. Non-destructive testing shall not be used to select welds that are subject to destructive testing in accordance with 8.1. 8.9.2 Rights of rejection. All non-destructive test methods are limited to information that can be derived with the identification they produce. The companies may therefore reject any weld that appears to meet this acceptance standards, and if any of the opinion of the depth of the imperfection may be detrimental to the weld. 9.3 Radiographic testing. Note all densities referred to in 9.3 through 9.13 are based on negative images. 9.3.1 Inadequate penetration without high or low. Inadequate penetration high-low is defined as incomplete filling of the welding root. The distance is shown schematically in Figure 13. The high-low inadequate penetration shall be considered with a defect should any of the following conditions exist. Length of an individual indication of inadequate penetration exceeds 1 cent, and the aggregated length of an indication exceeds inadequate penetration of any continuous 12-inch length of the weld exceeding 1 inch. The aggregated length indicates that inadequate penetration exceeds 8% of the weld and any less than 12 inches in length. Inadequate penetration due to high to low. Inadequate penetration due to high to low is defined as the condition that exceeds the one edge of the root exposed for bonded. B. Because the adjacent pipe of the fitting of the misaligned with the condition shown schematically, Figure 14, the inadequate penetration due to high to low shall be considered with a defect in showing only the following conditions. Length of individual indication inadequate penetration exceeds 2 inches. The aggregated length of it indicates inadequate penetration due to high to low, continuous 12-inch length with welds exceeding 3 inches. Figure 13 shows inadequate penetration of the high-low. And then 9.3 inadequate cross penetration. Inadequate cross penetration, or ICP, is defined with a subsurface imperfection between the first inside pass and first outside pass caused with the inadequate penetration vertical and land face of the caution. Condition showed to be schematically shown in Figure 15. Inadequate cross penetration shall consider the defect show any of the following conditions exist. Length of the individual indication inadequate cross penetration exceeds 2 inch. Aggregated length of the indication individual inadequate cross penetration and continuous length of 12 inches. Length of weld exceeding 2 inches. Alright, 9.3.4 Incomplete Fusion, IF. Incomplete Fusion, IF is defined as subsurface imperfection between the welded metal base material open and the surface of the condition shown schematically in Figure 16 should be considered a defect should any of the following conditions exist. The length of the individual indication of the incomplete fusion exceeds 1 inch. Aggregated length of the indication of incomplete fusion any continuous 12-inch length of the weld exceeds 1 inch. Aggregated length indicates incomplete fusion exceeding 8% of the welded length and not any weld less than 12 inches in length. 9.3.5 Incomplete fusion due to cold lap. Incomplete fusion due to cold lap, or IFD, defines the imperfection detail between two adjacent weld beads between the welded metal and the base metal that is not open to the surface. The condition is only schematically shown in Figure 17. The incomplete fusion due to cold lap shall be considered the defect should any of the following conditions exist. The length of the individual indication incomplete fusion due to cold lap exceeds 2 inches. The aggregated length of the indication of the incomplete fusion cold lap and continuous 12-inch length will exceed 2 inches. The aggregated length of the indication individual incomplete fusion due to cold lap exceeds 8% of the weld length. Alright, 9.3.6 Internal concavity. Internal concavity, or IC, defined 3.2.7 shown schematically in Figure 18. Any length of the internal concavity acceptance provided with the density of the radiographic image. Internal concavity does not exceed the thickness adjacent parent material for areas that exceed the density of the thickness adjacent parent material. The criteria for burn through Section 9.3.7 applicable. Alright, 937 burn through. A burn through, or BT, defined as a portion of a root bead which exceeds the where excessive penetration can cause the weld to puddle to be blown into the pipe. 9372. The pipe of the outside diameter greater than or equal to 2.375 is of an inch or burn through should be considered a defect should any of the following conditions exist. Maximum dimension of 1/4 inch and the density of the burn through image exceed the thinness adjacent parent metal. The maximum dimension exceed the thinner nominal wall thickness, the density of the burn through image exceed the thinnest adjacent parent metal. The sum of the maximum dimension separates the burn through whole image. The density exceed the thinnest adjacent parent metal exceeds 1.5 inch any continuous 12-inch length of weld or total weld length, whichever is less. 9373. For the pipe outside diameter less than 2.375 inches, the burn through should be considered a defect when any of the following conditions exist. Maximum dimension exceeds 1/4 inch, and the density of the burn through image exceeds the thinnest adjacent parent metal. The maximum dimension exceeds the thinner nominal wall thickness, and density of the burn through image exceeds the thin adjacent parent metal. More than one burn through any side of the present density of the more than one image exceeds the thinnest adjacent parent metal. 938. Slag inclusions. 9381. A slag inclusion is defined as a non-metallic solid entrapped the weld metal between the welded metal with the parent metal. Elongated slag inclusion continues to broken slag lines, wagon trails, usually found in fusion zone. Isolated slag inclusions, ISE, are irregularly shaped and may be located anywhere in the weld. For evaluation process side of the radiographic including slag is measured, the indication of maximum dimension should be considered as length. 9382. For pipe outside diameter greater than or equal to 2.375 inches, slag inclusion should be considered a defect should any of the following conditions exist. The length of the elongated slag inclusion indicates exceeds 2 inches. Figure 14 shows inadequate penetration due to high to low, incomplete filing of the root on one side, inadequate cross penetration. Bonding is absent, imperfection, surface connection, incompletion root to be the top of the joint. Incomplete fusion due to cold lap, internal concavity. Alright, the aggregated length of the elongated slag inclusion indicates the continuous 12-inch length of the weld exceeds 2 inches. The width of the elongated slag inclusion indicating exceeds 1/16 of an inch. Aggregated length of the isolated slag inclusion indicates any continuous 12-inch length which exceeds ½ inch. The width of the inclusion slag isolated slag inclusion exceeds 1/8 of an inch. More than 4 isolated slag inclusion indicate the maximum width of 1/8 of an inch ain't present with a continuous 12-inch length of the weld. Aggregated length of the elongated slag inclusion in isolated slag inclusion indicates exceed of 8% of the weld of length. For pipe with an outside diameter less than 2.375 inches, a slag inclusion should be considered a defect should any of the following conditions exist. The length of the elongated slag inclusion indicates exceeding 3 times the thinner nominal wall thickness joined. The width of the elongated slag inclusion indicates exceeds 1/16 of an inch. Aggregated length of the included in isolated slag inclusion indicates exceed 2 times the thinner nominal wall thickness joined, and with width exceeding 1/2 thinner and nominal wall thickness joined. The aggregated length of the elongated slag inclusion in the isolated slag inclusion indicates exceed 8% of the length. Or porosity. Porosity is defined as gas trap by solidifying metal before the gas has a chance to rise. The surface of the molten puddle escapes. Porosity is general cylindrical but elongated irregular shapes, such as a piping wormhole porosity. When the site of the radiographic indication produces a pore measured with a maximum dimension indicating it shall apply with the criteria given in the 932. 9392, 9394. 9392. Individual scattered porosity shall be considered a defect, and should any of the following conditions exist. Size of the individual pore exceeds 1/8 of an inch. Size of the individual pore exceeds 25% of the thinner nominal wall thickness joined. Distribution scattered porosity exceeds the concentration permitted in figure 19 and 20. Alright, 939. 3. Cluster porosity, or CP, a curve of the pass except with the finished pass comply with the criteria 9392, curve of the porosity per cluster porosity, a curve of the finished pass should consider the defective should any of the following conditions exist. Diameter of the cluster exceeds 1/2 inch. Aggregated length over the cluster porosity and continuous with 12-inch length would exceed 1/2 inch. Individual pore of the cluster exceeds 1/16 of an inch in size. 9394 hollow bead porosity, defined as the elongated linear porosity that occurs in the root pass. The hollow bead porosity shall be considered a defect should any of the following conditions exist. Length of individual indication of hollow bead porosity exceeds 1/2 inch. Aggregated length indicates hollow bead porosity, and any continuous 12-inch length of which weld exceeds 2 inch. Individual indication of hollow bead porosity, each greater than 1/4 inch in length and separated by less than 2 inches. Aggregated length of the indication of hollow bead porosity exceeds 8% of the weld length. Art 9310 cracks. Cracks shall be considered a defect should any of the following conditions exist. The crack at any side of the location of the weld, not a shallow crater crack or a star crack. Crack is a shallow crater crack or a star crack with a length that exceeds 5/32 of an inch. Alright, I believe we're on undercutting. Undercutting is defined as a groove melted in the parent material adjacent to the toe or the root of the weld left unfilled with the weld metal. Undercutting adjacent to the cover of the pass is EU. Root pass is IU. Should be considered a defect and should any of the following conditions exist. Aggregated length with indications of the cover pass and root pass, and any of the combination of continuous 12-inch length with which exceeds 2 inch. Aggregated length with the indications of the cover pass and root pass undercut if any of the combination exceeds 1/16 of an inch weld length. 91312 accumulation imperfections, excluding incomplete penetration due to the high-low undercutting accumulation imperfections. Shall be considered a defect should any of the following conditions. This aggregated length indication in continuous 12-inch length would exceed 2 inches. Aggregated length just to adjudication exceeding 8 inches in length. And shows your assorted large, medium, fine, and a line 3 or more. Maximum distribution gas pockets wall thickness greater than 1/2 or less than thin equal to 1/2 inch. Assorted large, medium, fine, line 3 or more. Maximum distribution gas pocket wall thickness greater than 1/2 inch. Alright, 9313 pipe fitting and imperfections. Imperfections pipe fittings detailed with the radiographic testing shall be reported with to the company with a disposition and shall be directed by the company. 9.4 magnetic particle classification indication. Indication produced for the magnetic particle testing necessary imperfection magnetic metallurgic variation producing indications similar to those that produce the imperfections but they are not relevant. Acceptability of the criteria 9412 and 91413 apply with the indication evaluated. Any indication maximum dimension of a 16th of an inch or less classified with a non-relevant. Any larger indication believed to be non-relevant should be regarded as irrelevant until re-examine the medical particle or another non-destructive testing examination determine whether a non-actual imperfection exists. The surface may be grounded otherwise conditioned, but before re-examination indication will determine to be the non-relevant or the non-relevant indication same type needed for the not to be re-examined. Alright, 94313. Relevant indications called for the imperfection. Linear indications of the length is more than 3 times the width. The rounded indications of those of the width of the length is 3 times the width of less. 942. Acceptance criteria. Relevant indications considered a defect should any of the following conditions exist. Linear indication value with a crater crack, star cracks exceeding 5/32 of an inch length. Linear indications evaluated with cracks other than crater cracks and star cracks. Linear indications evaluated with an incomplete fusion and exceed 1/8 of an inch total length with a continuous 12-inch length with an 8% welded length. Rounded indications should be evaluated in accordance with the criteria 9392, 9399. 9392, 9393. As applicable evaluation purposes, maximum dimension round indication shall be considered as its size. 943. Pipe and fitting imperfections. Imperfection in pipe fittings detected with the magnetic particle testing shall be reported to the company with the disposition shall be directed by the company. 9.5. Liquid penetration classification and indication. The indication procedure with a liquid penetration test are not necessary imperfection. Machine marking scratches surface conditions may produce the indication similar to those produced by imperfections, but they are not relevantly acceptable to the criteria of figure 9512 and 9513. Apply when indications are evaluated. Any indication of the maximum dimension 1/16 of an inch or less of classified non-relevant. A larger indication believed to be non-relevant shall be regarded with the relevant and re-examined liquid penetration and other non-destructive test method to determine whether or not actual imperfection exists. Surfaces may be grounded otherwise conditioned before re-examination. Indications if determined to be non-relevant and non-relevant indications same type need not to be re-examined. 9513. Relevant indications are those caused of imperfection. Linear indications of those which length is 3 times the width. Rounded indications are those which have length 3 times the width or less. Acceptable clearance, acceptable standards. Relevant indications should consider defects and should any of the following conditions exist. Linear indications evaluated with crater cracks or star cracks exceeding 5/32, and linear indication evaluated with cracks other than crater cracks and star cracks. Linear indications evaluated in incomplete fusion exceeding 1 inch in the total length with a continuous 12-inch length of the width or the 88% of the weld length. Round indications should be evaluated in accord with the criteria 9392, 9392, 9393. As applicable for evaluation purpose, the maximum dimension round indication should be considered in its size. Alright, 953. Piping, fitting, and imperfection. Imperfection of the piping fitting to detect with a liquid penetration test shall be reported to the company. The disposition shall be directed by the company. 96. Ultrasonic testing classification and indication. Indication produced for the ultrasonic testing not necessarily defect the chamber of the weld geometry due to alignment, offset of the butting pipe ends of the chamber of the welding, and reinforcement of the inside diameter and outside diameter, capping passes, internal shaft ring, ultrasonic wave mode conversions due to the such condition may cause geometric indications that are similar to those that caused by weld imperfections but are not relevant to acceptability. Linear indication are defined indication with great dimension of the weld length direction. Typically, the linear directions may be caused but are not limited to the following type of imperfection: inadequate penetration with the high to low, inadequate pretension due to high to low, inadequate cross pretension, incomplete fusion due to cold lap, elongated slag inclusion, and cracks under adjacent to cover passes and root passes. Hollow bead porosity. Transverse indications are defined with the indication greater dimensions across the weld. The typical transverse indications may be caused but are not limited to the following types of imperfection: cracks, isolated slag inclusion, incomplete fusion due to cold lap, start stops, and weld. Volumetric indications are defined in three-dimensional indications. Such indication may be caused single, multiple inclusion voids, pores, partial filled voids, pores, small inclusion, start, stop, weld passes must be with a larger indicate with the transverse direction with the weld length direction. Typical volumetric indications may be caused but not limited to the following type of the imperfection: internal concavity, burn through, isolated slag inclusion, porosity, cluster porosity. Relevant indications of those imperfections. Relevant indications shall be evaluated on the evaluation level given in 1147. Acceptable standards given in 962. 962. Acceptable standards. Indication determined to be that the crack should be considered defect. Linear surfaces to indicate other than cracks interpreted to open the inside-outside diameter surface with considered defect should any of the following conditions exist: an aggregated length of the linear surface to indicate with a continuous 12-inch length of the weld exceeding 1 inch. The aggregated length of the linear surface exceeds 8% of the welded length. Linear buried indications other than cracks interpreted with the subsurface of the weld not in the inside diameter or outside diameter surface connected with the shall be considered defect should any of the following conditions exist: aggregated length of the linear buried indications continuous 12-inch would exceed 2 inches. Aggregated length of linear buried indication exceeds 8.8% of the weld length. 9624. Transverse indications other than cracks shall be considered volumetric evaluated using criteria volumetric indications. Letter T. Show the designate all reported transverse indication. Volumetric clusters indicate shall be considered defects of maximum dimension. Volumetric cluster indicates exceeds 1.5 inch. Volumetric individual indications shall consider defects of the maximum dimension. Volumetric individual indications exceeding 1/4 inch both width and length. Volumetric root indications are interpreted to open the inside diameter of subsurface. The consider of the defect should be any of the following conditions exist. Maximum dimension of the volumetric root exceeds the 1/4 inch. The total length of the volumetric root indications exceed 1/2 inch. Any of the continuous 12-inch length. Any accumulation relevant indication should be considered the defect if any of the following conditions exist. Aggregated length of the indication above the evaluation level exceeds 2 inches. Any of the 12-inch length of the weld, or the length of the indications above the evaluation level exceeds 8% of the weld length. 963 pipe fitting and imperfection. Imperfection of the pipe and or fittings detected with the ultrasonic testing should be reported to the company. This disposition should be corrected by the company. 97 visual acceptance standard for undercutting. Undercutting is defined in 9311. Acceptance for the standard in 972. Supplements do not replace the visual inspection requirements found elsewhere in the standard. 972 acceptance standard of the visual mechanical means used to determine the depth of undercutting adjacent with the cover of the root and beam shall not exceed the dimension of the given in table 4. Both of the mechanical radiographic measurements are available. Mechanical measurements shall govern. And then it shows the maximum dimensions of undercutting of the depth and length. Chapter 10, repair and removal of the defects.